Hello, I'm Kerry Gilbert. I'm an Associate Professor of Medical Education and Medical Sciences and the lead for Enquiry-based learning in the Peninsula Medical School here in Plymouth. Thank you for listening in and watching this presentation today. Today, I'll introduce the background to our small group learning programme, with particular emphasis on our EBL or Enquiry-based learning programme here at Peninsula. I'll provide some information about how it works in practice for our medical, including Foundation Year 0 and diagnostic radiography students. Evidence in the academic educational literature shows that small group learning helps staff and students form better relationships, which leads to better student engagement in their learning. It's also very challenging and great fun. There's also increasing evidence that it promotes better long-term academic achievement as students remember more of what they have learnt. Small groups at Peninsula take several forms. You'll learn life sciences together in small groups in the Life Science Resource Centre, clinical skills in the Clinical Skills Resource Centre, and you will also learn in very small groups of between 8 and 10 students in your jigsaws and inquiry-based learning sessions. These groups often help form the basis of deep and lasting friendships, and they might be something you want to ask our students about in the question and answer session later on. Jigsaws are a special kind of small group that we use in Year 1 and Year 2 of the medical programme. These sessions are where you will discuss the clinical aspects of your learning. You'll be encouraged to share all the new and interesting clinical experiences you have had. You'll talk about what you've seen and why healthcare professionals do things in the way that they do. It's also a safe place where you will have a practicing healthcare provider to guide you through the uncertainties of developing your clinical understanding and reasoning as you work towards becoming a doctor or healthcare provider. You'll learn new skills, such as what it means to be a professional, and you'll have the chance to explore some of the psychological and social aspects of being a healthcare professional. The curriculum we follow is a guide through the early clinical experiences to the more complex aspects of healthcare that you will encounter as you move through the course. A central component of learning at Peninsula is our Enquiry-based learning or EBL course. So in the next few slides, I'll go through what we mean by EBL, what you'll be expected to do in it, and why we use it as a key component of the courses offered here. While you're watching the next few slides, I'd like you to think about what strikes you as being good about using EBL, whether it would suit you and the way you learn, and if you think it's a good way to learn medicine. So think about that as we go on. Different types of inquiry-based learning are used in medical schools throughout the world. You may have heard some of the types of course that fall into this, such as case-based learning and problem-based learning. Both fall under the umbrella of inquiry-based learning. If you've been to other schools who use this type of learning, think about how they work in different places and how that compares to what we do. I'm going to start by telling you what it isn't. You won't be told all the answers by somebody standing at the front of the class imparting their knowledge and wisdom, and it can feel quite scary at first. We don't tell you all the answers. In the same way as learning a sport or physical activity, it takes time and can be quite unsettling and difficult at first. Nobody can tell you how to do it in such a way that you'll immediately be a master. It takes time to practice, learn, make mistakes, reflect, learn more, and so on and so forth. What we don't do is throw you in at the deep end without any support. But the first time you get on a surfboard, you won't be able to do this. But we will support you to manage and direct your own learning, and we will help you to work with your group to discover what you already know and where you need to learn to develop your learning together. What this will help you do is develop the learning skills you need as you embark on a career that will require you to learn and keep learning as you progress in life as a doctor or healthcare professional. And this is vital to your success in a professional healthcare world. Moving on to what actually happens in an EBL session. You'll be split into groups of between 8 and 10 students, and each group will have its own facilitator. In year 1, this will be one of the core academic staff members. The sessions generally start with a story, which may be about a patient or a doctor or healthcare professional. The main thing is there will be some familiarity, maybe hidden deep in your brain, but everybody will know something about each case. So, the case is read out and you start to decide what you already know. You decide the limits of your knowledge and what you need to find out to develop your understanding. This is helped because the other learning you are doing will at the same time will also be linked. So you'll have an idea of what is expected from other learning that you're doing. The aim of EBL is Enquiry. You look at what you know and you develop questions to extend your understanding. It's not about solving problems or finding the right answers. This form of learning will help you to develop the skills required for clinical reasoning later in the course. So how does this fit in with the rest of your studies? Each case unit lasts for 2 weeks. During that time, you will meet 3 times, once in the first week and twice in the second week. You will have several other sessions and plenty of time to study in between your EBL sessions, and it is important to understand that they all link into each other. You can use what you've learned in other sessions to guide you in the extra learning that EBL will highlight. The EBL curriculum was brand new in the 2019-2020 academic year. We've just completed the full course for the first time. These new cases drew on and improved upon the original PBL cases written when Peninsula first started, taking into account relevant and up-to-date evidence from the education literature and from our own studies. It's bespoke to our own curriculum, which is guided by the GMC Outcomes for Graduates that outlines what a new doctor should be able to do. So they reflect doctors' roles in hospitals, the community, and looking after the health of the population. The cases offer lots of opportunities to consolidate learning and apply it to new situations and scenarios. In the first year, we start with a young adult, close in age to most of you as new students. We introduce the main systems of the body whilst also loosely the life cycle, so looking at people of different ages. As we move from term 1 to term 2, the systems are integrated across cases, allowing you to use what you've learnt, applying it to different people in different age groups. As you move to year 2, the cases become more complex and start to reflect the challenge of multiple health conditions seen in the normal patient cohort of a city such as Plymouth. Year 0 students also do a EBL. The cases look at the broadest sense of people in populations and how their medical conditions affect daily life. For diagnostic radiographers, the course follows a similar pattern to that of the medics EBL course, but with a stronger emphasis and focus on people requiring imaging and the imaging they need for different conditions. In more detail, all programmes follow the Peninsula 8-step approach.
So, morning everybody. We've got Mr. Bryce this week. Zoe, I think you'll chair?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, you subscribing this week? Yeah. Okay. Over to you.
Right, okay, should we start by reading the case? Does anyone want to read it out loud?
I will.
Starting by ensuring everyone understands the language by clarifying and defining any areas of ambiguity or confusion, then pulling out the main issues. Mr. Ted Bryce is a 58-year-old man who comes to see you, his GP, because he has been having trouble sleeping for a few months and he'd like some sleeping tablets. You ask him some questions to try and find out about his insomnia, and you find out he has 4 children, 2 of whom are still at school. He works for a local engineering company which is threatened with closure, and he feels a bit stressed that he might lose his job and will not be able to feed his family, and his house might be repossessed. You look on the computer at his medical records and discover that he was put on a medication to treat high blood pressure 2 years ago, but that he hasn't requested a repeat prescription for almost a year. You check his blood pressure and find that it's a bit high. So first of all, we'd work out which terms we might not understand. So things like insomnia or hypertension might be more particularly difficult for some people who've not come across those things before. Somebody in the group might know what they mean, and so in that case you would clarify and define straight away. If nobody knew, a question could be set to find out more about those things in the research time in between sessions. The next thing we do is explore the issues, so we do a brainstorm to work out what the issues for the case are. And then we start to activate the prior knowledge and hypothesize. This is an example of a concept map. So the issues have been put up on the board and then some links have been put between them. This helps you to understand what you already know about the case, so activating the prior knowledge.
Okay, so that looks quite good. Where do we want to go with this now?
Should we start putting stuff on the whiteboards, activating our prior knowledge? And maybe we can split into groups. So one group on the board over there, and one group stick on this board. Yeah?
Do we just swap part way? Or?
Yeah. Should we swap halfway through, so then if we've got stuff we can add to it?
Yeah.
How do we want to do it? Do we want to stick with someone does blood pressure and keep that as one, and then the other group start with the social history and the insomnia, is he having any stress? Yeah? Okay. So who wants to start with blood pressure?
Should we just split
Should we
half?
split it?
If reading blood pressure, we'll do
Yeah?
stress and insomnia.
Yeah.
So now,
So let's talk about let's go with stress first, because then we can brainstorm what way. So stress, job loss.
Yeah. Right, well, this kids are in school.
Yeah, exactly. That would be,
Or does he feel like ability to, and then external factors would be the fact that he's losing, he might lose his job and he doesn't have any control over that. So you can
It's in mechanism.
right here. So
Control those what you do, how to, like, in how is that how you
Once you have done this, you will start to identify the issues you want to investigate further and write some questions to guide your learning. So in this case, there's a broad range of questions looking at blood pressure, adherence to medical treatment, and the interplay between stress and high blood pressure. For the next step, students will work independently or with friends to go through and answer questions set by the group. We call this self-directed or guided self-learning, as the time spent learning is guided by the questions set in the group, rather than being entirely independent. During the time between EBL sessions, you will have lots of other facilitator-led sessions which will support the learning that is coming from EBL. You will also have access to a number of resources to help you in your directed self-study, such as the resource centres, e-resources, your peers who you can talk to between sessions, and the library. In session 2, armed with the learning directed by session 1's questions, you will return to your group to share the findings, but rather than going through everything that everybody has found out, your learning will be applied to the next part of the case, which will take you further into the story started in session 1. This will help you to integrate your learning by putting it into the context of the case you are studying. You'll also need to apply your learning to help explore further issues as the case unfolds. So in doing this, you'll be using the first 4 steps again, as well as moving on to steps 5, 6 and 7. In session 3, you'll complete the case outlined in session 1, although you should still have further questions, and there will also be opportunities to use your learning from the case in future cases. At the end of each session, you'll be asked to use step 8 to feedback and evaluate how well you are working, both as individuals and in your group.
Right, it was a really good session, really enjoyed that. Shall we just have a quick go around the table, what we felt went well, what we could have done a little bit better? So if we want to start with Michael.
I thought the concept map was pretty good, and I thought we came up with some good questions.
Okay, James?
I thought everyone getting involved with the board was good verbally. Maybe next time try and get more people up and active drawing on it as well, because we only had 2 this week.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, everyone was quite honest about just like defining the terms of meaning. I thought that was quite good, because like sometimes it ends up that people don't want to say, but everyone feels quite comfortable to say what they don't understand, which is good.
Okay, Ashika?
I think everyone participated equally today. I don't think there was anyone that didn't really say much.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think we're efficient and effective. Did everything we needed to do, and well, I learned a lot from the drawings, and it's nice for other people to teach me, and hopefully I'll teach other people stuff.
We did get distracted this week, which was good, and maybe people contribute a bit more from other parts of the course. That'll be quite useful.
I like the way at the end we went back to Alan and tried to see how it was for him and how we do with him.
I thought, James, you were a really good chair this week. Because I think usually we do get quite sort of distracted in things, but you generally kept us on quite a good sort of got on straight and narrow, so it was a lot more productive than sometimes. But yeah, it was generally a really good session, I think.
You'll find that you use all the steps several times throughout each case, visiting and revisiting prior knowledge, building in new learning and developing your understanding of the human body and how it responds in health and illness. It's good to remember that the learning from each case will provide learning that can be used in new cases as they come up, and that all your learning is integrated throughout from day 1 of the course you do. If you have any questions on this part of the talk, please write them down now and bring them to the question and answer session later on. In summary, what will you get out of EBL and the EBL based courses we offer here? The main intention of the cases we use are to integrate and extend your knowledge of the basic sciences, the social and psychological aspects of health and illness, understanding of what it means to be a professional in a healthcare setting, and how you will play a part in the overall health of the population, locally, nationally and globally. Importantly, it will help you to learn and integrate your learning in a clinical context. In the process of learning in this way, you would develop a number of transferable skills important to your learning in the course as you move through it and in chosen career path once you qualify. Things like team working and giving feedback, as well as the other skills, are paramount to being a successful practitioner in the NHS and healthcare systems more broadly. One thing you might be thinking, especially parents watching this presentation, is, does it work? Well, the growing weight of educational evidence shows that it does, and it's particularly pertinent that Enquiry as a means of developing understanding promotes deep learning, so it trumps traditional courses from the point of view that by understanding you'll retain enough to be able to work your way through situations that may make you feel uncertain. You'll have a good array of clinical and communication skills, and you'll be able to work out what you do know and how to apply it to the patient or situation in front of you, taking into consideration the cultural, legal and ethical aspects of each case. We feel that this makes your learning more enjoyable, not just for you, but for the staff working with you, and happy facilitators and happy students enhance the learning journey for us all. The literature suggests that this type of inquiry-based curriculum leads to graduates better prepared for the world of healthcare. We believe this is why our students feel more ready than others as they embark on their first days as doctors, as reported by the General Medical Council in their statistics for 2018-19. Now, going back to the questions I asked at the beginning of the talk, what do you think is good about this way of learning through EBL and in small groups, and is this something you'd enjoy? Do you think you'd learn medicine and the way to become a good doctor? If you're enthusiastic after hearing what I've said here, Plymouth Peninsula may be the place for you. If you have any questions, please write them down and come to our question and answer session later on. We'd be happy to talk to you and give you more information. Thank you for listening. We look forward to meeting you soon.